Hey guys, this is episode 6 of Part Time Rambles. Today we have Tyne,
Hey, what's up?
Kyle,
Yeah, that's me.
and Connor.
How's it going?
So today we're going to be talking about magic and the cultures, the different cultures, positive and negative connotations of it. Um, Later we'll get into more fun stuff like scenarios and stuff like that, but we want to start off getting the actual history of it and like the reality of magic. And Tyne, you can go ahead and start us off.
Okay. So as far as like history of magic and the cultures and stuff, I think it's very interesting how in a lot of the older Eastern cultures, their relationship with magic and the naturalness, it seems a lot more positive. Like whether or not you believe if magic exists, as far as it goes on, they weren't very negative towards those people. Like when you have Western cultures, as when we start progressing towards those eras, and you have a lot of Western cultures, and you get the Salem witch trials and a ton of other witch trials, you have a whole negative aspect towards magic, especially when it's like, oh, you could have just not believed in it and it been fine. But why is in one culture does it seem so, oh, you can just tolerate it and move on? And the others, it kind of stems towards this other idea of it being so negative. And yeah, um, if y'all want to
Right.
take from there.
I mean, I guess it probably stems from like single god religions. Uh, because I guess back in, I don't know, or in Eastern cultures, like some of my family and stuff that come from like pagan religions,
Hmm.
or like pagan cultures, so much more open to knowing that there were multiple gods or things like that. But at the same time, I guess when it came down to like Christianity started to come around, Catholicism and all that stuff, it seems more like they were afraid of it because that could challenge, their singular God kind of idea instead of the multiples. But as far as it being unacceptable, I mean, any religion, I guess they were saying in that description that the what is it, Wiccan and
Hmm.
these other like I don't know if you would call them cult like religions or like these other ones, but neo pagan religions and stuff now that they I don't know have multiple gods and stuff. I don't know they're never like endangered by it, but when it comes to Christianity, I think like when it came down to these other like witchcrafts or things like that, they saw them as like opposing religions or opposing beliefs to what they wanted the masses to believe. So pretty much, if you spoke anything about magic, I guess like in a Western culture, or at least from like you know my family's culture stuff, clashing with Western culture. Um, Of course, they hated them because they had so many multiple gods, and then because
Hmm.
you know, if you talk like Norse mythology, there was a lot of magic in that, and
Yeah,
they
Odin,
used
Thor, all that.
they used drugs and stuff to what they thought was would provoke prophecy and vision and
Yeah, the
you know
connection.
yeah, so they defined kind of the magic, like of course lightning, and every time lightning struck, it was Thor banging his hammer on his anvil, and all this, and they believed, Thor's magic or whatever was created the lightning and his wrath, and they thought it was more of a sign and magic than actually manifesting and being something. But if they happened to be in battle or something and someone was struck by lightning, which could happen. It's in the north. It's it's tall mountains, and they're clad in armor and steel and
And if they're
whatever.
fighting in the rain,
Yeah, in
especially
the
on
rain.
ships and stuff.
So to them, magic was a natural phenomena, but that's what they would, liken it to. Thor, and a god, and bam, and it must have been Thor. Like this was prophecy. As far as witchcraft and stuff, I couldn't really tell you. And I mean, as far as magic goes, like that and in that regard.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what I know about.
I think,
Huh?
yeah, I think it's still kind of similar. Um, as far as magic in those regards, it all kind of stems back. That's why I think it is so interesting that you have this total like rejection of magic when you get into Western culture, and like I get it, you have this single god, and oh, it's all of goes stems back to him, and that's there's no such thing as magic. But then also, like that that God's son does magic all the time. Like I would say replicating fish and healing people would be considered magic.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
so it's like, oh, like you accept that these things happen and it's okay to do, but like to do them is now not okay seems very weird.
Well, I
And
think sorry if I interject, but
no,
maybe
go ahead.
it's because as if it's not their magic, like it's not their religion or their magic, then it's very threatening. So it's like, of course, I guess if we're picking on Christianity, then like God and Jesus,
Sorry.
yeah, if God and Jesus were, they're the ones that are prescribing to, magic and things like that, the burning bush and snakes and parting seas and raising from the dead and all of this and his miracles.
Yeah.
Like, of course, but if it, of course, it's heresy if it's not Jesus or anything like that. And I believe they were striking down people like that. Like that's should be God's power, God's will, and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
maybe
I think
that's
you,
why.
So,
sorry.
no, no, go on.
I was just gonna say I think you're making a really good point. Just kind of going back to like the when you mentioned like single god versus multiple gods. From everything that I haven't this isn't a subject I've extensively studied, but from what I've picked up over the years, because it was just something that was always interesting, I feel like kind of like what you mentioned, like at first it wasn't necessarily to the people that practiced it in ancient religions and societies, like it wasn't seen as something supernatural. Like it almost, like it was a lot of most of the time, I feel like it was regarded as just a natural extension of the world. Like it was a way for us to another way for us to interact with the world and with each other, and with perception, and like talking about, like Ty mentioned, like using herbs and things like that. Like it's like if I'm not 100% sure, I can look it up right now, but I think like just getting into like the meaning or origins of the word magic, I think um it like the very first origins of that word translated like roughly to like wisdom or philosophy. So it was like, I feel like it was a school of thought, and a way of understanding and interacting with the world. And like you're talking about, like um our ancestors, right, seeing lightning or strike somebody, that's not something that is easily explainable or understood in that moment. So of course we explain it the best way we can, and then enter, um like we said, enter Christian theology. And I feel like it started to that's when associations started to be made between magic, I feel like, and more negative things like demons and bad stuff. And I wonder if that has to do also with like the fact that magic is, at least the way that the people that were afraid of it potentially maybe saw it as like you're not supposed to have that kind of power, like only God can have that kind of power, or angels. I don't know if that makes sense. Like humans aren't supposed to be have any kind of power to influence the world around them beyond their in that way. I don't know if that's
No, no.
Well,
So to me, that makes sense. And kind of what I'm getting here is you guys have all talked, and the main thing we're getting to is, and this can go into the connotations, is that basically, depending on the religion and what the religion was used for, determines the way people thought of magic as a whole.
Magic.
So if if you're religious and you're Catholic or Christian, or one of those, it's a fact that whether you believe it or not, that in the past religion was used to control a lot of people. It was used to control the mass. So it would it's reasonable that they would use that and any other type of source that showed any type of other power, they'd rule it out because it would interfere with controlling the masses. So that could be why the Western people see it as what do you call it
Mm,
less in a positive light.
Well,
yeah.
so what I think the word for it is divinity, right?
Hmm.
Divinity is basically magic reserved only for the gods of Christianity, you know. So
Yeah. It's champion magic, basically.
yeah, so basically, you know, this divine magic, divine rule, right? Whatever is absolute, and you know, so anything like you were saying, anything else would be regarded as something lower, or not magic, or even then, you know, of course, they had to create this opposing force, right? The devils, the demons, Satan, and all that. So anything that is not divine, you know, power, magic, miracle, is, you know, or is Satan. You know, it's some sort of devil magic, some sort of black magic or whatever, and was regarded, you know, in that negative light, probably because of that. So,
But what I want to really ask here is because we've talked about it Western a little bit, but do we have any idea about how Eastern cultures see it
Eastern.
in general? Like I'm pretty sure it's not going to be
It,
just black and white, but I'm sure it's
no,
totally different.
a lot of Eastern culture, at least in what I've viewed and seen, is it's more nature based. So kind of similar to like the Norse kind of ideas, because they had gods to. It was polytheistic, but the idea of how they even viewed nature was already very different, and it's all like, oh, we're connected and we're one. You can see it in their painting and in their entire culture. So like magic to them was great. A lot of the times, like you see it in Night at the Museum when he friggin' uses magic to make the Mongolian guy like all happy. Like they cherished magic. It was something that was cool. Yeah, they didn't understand it, but like seeing it be performed and stuff, and being people being able to do it was seen as like a good thing. It was an opening, it was a connection, it was a way to attain more power as well.
definitely you see it over in like Chinese culture and stuff, and they have dragons and a lot of the things like their superpowers in general is
Hmm.
that they've taught through kung fu and all that is like
Yeah,
ki and chi and inner harmony and power, like balance.
anime.
Yeah, it's like the weeb shit, right? Hiding in the shadows as a fucking ninja and shit, you know? Like
Like they're very
that's all
open and
real too.
connected.
Yeah. But
Because
that's
that's
then again, that's another multiple god uh,
hmm
culture, you know.
Yeah.
hmm
So,
because that's what I think. Because that's where I think I kind of want to lead into is like how these thoughts of magic affect our culture, and does having so yes, we know at this point certain things that we thought were magic aren't necessarily magic. Like there's this science aspect, right? So first, does that mean because there's science, does that mean magic cannot exist? And if it can exist, does that hurt our relationship with magic and with the world because our culture has such a harsh and negative light on those subjects?
Well, I think that really depends on like how you perceive magic. If you perceive magic as like more towards a natural an extension part of the world, then you wouldn't say it is excluded. But if you see magic as like telekinesis and stuff, then you're gonna be against it. And I think a part of that is another reason why Western culture sees it as more primitive, because we're like, oh, because the more we get educated and the way we see magic is not natural, so we're like, no, we can prove that wrong. No, that doesn't work like that, and like you get a lot more skeptics.
Is
well,
telekinesis not like yes, you could say,
Science
oh, it's not
fiction.
considered like a nature thing, but yeah, you know what I mean. Like you could also make arguments to where telekinesis is connected enough that yes, it's magic, but also you could give some scientific base. It's not crazy.
Well, I think I think I could explain a lot of this scientifically if you think about it this way.
Hmm.
And the way that you should think about it is that magic, for all intents and purposes, is that magic is just undefined science. And if you think about it that way, is think about it. I don't know, electricity. It was magic before we figured it out. You know, gravity was magic before we figured it out. Uh, you know, the stars and comets and signs and things like that was all just undefined science that was thought of, you know, as magic at one point or another. And if you take telekinesis, I mean, what is telekinesis? Moving or manipulating objects or things at a distance, right?
With your
Which
mind, yeah.
so mentally, if you're able to do that with your mind, there's a thing called string theory in quantum physics. Now,
Hmm.
string theory, as Einstein would say, was spooky action at a distance. Right now, if you could gain mastery over manipulating atoms and things at a distance, like spooky action at a distance, then I guess you would then possess telekinetic power because you could then manipulate something at a distance from your end. So I guess scientifically, that explains or could be what you would regard telekinesis as. But at the moment, since nobody's figured that out or anything or been able to prove it like that, then
Hmm.
right
It's
now
magic.
it's magic. It's a superpower. So
Yeah, that makes
I don't
sense.
know.
Makes sense. Um,
So
yeah. Do you have any thoughts, Connor?
I was just gonna. I found something kind of interesting. Apparently, the ancient Mesopotamians, according to this same kind of overview of the history of magic, had the ancient Mesopotamians had no distinction between rational science and magic. It says that when a person became ill, doctors would prescribe both magical formulas to be recited as well as medicinal treatments. Most magical rituals were intended to be performed by an asipu. I think I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but an expert in the magical arts. The profession was generally passed down from generation to generation and was held in extremely high regard and often served as advisors to kings and leaders. And these people probably not only served as magician, but also physician, priest, scribe, and scholar. And so that makes me think like, on the one hand, um, everything that was just said about like magic is science that we just don't understand. I 100% agree with that. And also like reading this, I can't help but also wonder at the same time too if another perspective of um of magic is potentially like thinking about the the consciousness aspect and like the interplay between the physical world and our consciousness and our thoughts and perceptions. I'm wondering if like the reason why, like for example with the Mesopotamians, um you had medicinal, like physical medicinal treatments along with magical incantation, was because they're, in order for like a complete um for example, like in this case, healing to occur, there needed to be a union of both
Both.
physical chemical properties along with psychological and conscious orientation
Spiritual.
towards that goal.
So all right. So what I'm hearing right here. So based off of that, if we could take it back to I guess a Christian example, right? So you were saying priests, right? And priests are advisors. They have been to kings for years.
Hmm.
Physicians as well. If you talk about like the medicinal and magical, right? uh, take exorcism, right?
Ah,
At the and you know, if you look at the movies and you want to go that route, I mean, during exorcisms and the possession of demons, they physically do harm the host, while also at the same time, you know, is spiritually. So they stand there, and of course, priests, abbots, whoever's there, you know, nurses and all that, they all come together, and of course, physically, they have to sustain the patient, and then also magically with, you know, magical water, you know, holy water and shit, like splash the fuck out of this demon for whatever reason, and all those incantations, the Latin phrases and everything, whatever incantations to banish spirits or demons or whatever you would call it. It's a Christian example. That's, I guess that's their version of that uh, magical and, I guess, physical treatment, or I guess like in medicine.
so I really like that this was actually brought up because I didn't think about it. But if you full heartedly believe in something, even if someone was to try to explain that giving someone the medicinal stuff was enough and the incantations didn't matter, if you look at it from a psychological aspect, like you were pointing out, um, those things, if you full hearted believe in it, actually do help. And I'm pretty
Okay.
sure there's been studies. There's a reason why we use there's experiments with placebos where
Yeah.
people get better even though you all you were giving them was sugar water or whatever. So
Yeah,
the psychological effect is also very
the power of
important.
mind
That's
is there.
Yeah, that's
that's
the science behind that magic.
But
so.
that's because that's what I'm also like thinking though, right? It's like that's the science behind that magic. So now we wouldn't call it magic. So like in a world where you can do telekinesis, you no longer call it magic anymore because you can just do it,
So,
right? Is kind of the idea.
Yeah, but you were asking if they can exist along each other. We're always going to be learning new things, and there's always going to be stuff that's not defined. So, if
So they
I guess the
always
final answer is yes, because um, like there's always going to be things we don't
well,
understand.
it's also not that they exist alongside each other anymore. It's now that they have a relationship. The
yeah, they're almost a
relationship
causal relationship.
is, yeah, like, oh, is this magic? Like, what is this thing? And then, oh, you can replicate it, and that's why it's called science. Like, if
Yeah,
we can
magic is
replicate
the
the
question.
magic.
Yeah, magic is the question. Science is the answer, pretty much.
Or the best answer we
Uh,
can come up with.
yeah. Well, so the answer is ever changing. That, you know, that's why science is so good. I mean, I mean, it's the same way you could talk to somebody. Someone could say, "Hey, would you like some pizza?" You could. There are multiple options. There's yes, yes, I would. Yes, I would like that very much. Or yes, I would like that very much because I love cheese. You know, like there's all these different options and stuff. But
Actually, I
what's it?
disagree.
Oh,
Just on like I'm thinking about just in the question of like coexistence between science and magic. I feel like one of I feel like the first thing to emphasize is or to point out is that like the difference between science as like a practice, like the scientific method of like observing things around you, making a hypothesis, testing it, versus like science as an institution. um like for example, like in the West, I feel like thinking of science as an institution um versus magic, I feel like those can't exist, just in the sense that like um feel like one of the foundations of our institution of science in the West is like I feel like one of the foundational principles of that institution is that we are cut off from reality, cut off from existence, from matter outside of our bodies. Like there's no connection between our consciousness, our minds, and our internal experience and the outer world, except through our bodies if we make physical contact.
that's actually perfect because I was just about to ask that question
So this
of
is Matrix theory.
like the prayer
Yeah.
idea, right, of saying like prayer has been shown to actually work. Whether there's a God or not is still not proven. But if
What's that
multiple
placebo effect?
people, if multiple, if multiple people focus their will and intent on something happening, those things will happen more likely. So it's like this idea of, can you use your mind and like this other aspect of self? Like, are you something controlling this body, and that something is the spirit that can also interact with the other world around it, and these things are connected? Or is it literally just you are this body and that is it? Like Connor was saying, in the Western world, science, the foundation, the institution is saying, you're just this body. But magic normally is saying, like, you can interact with the world with more than just your body. If that's what you're
Well,
saying, Connor,
Yeah,
correct me if
yeah,
I'm
no, that's
well,
that's that's exactly my question.
well, that's a great question, but I'll tell you, it is a dead end question
wrong.
because that question only leads to more questions, and I'll tell you that question is magical, and we won't know until we use science to figure it out. And as far as we know, the best answer is all we can give is we don't know right now. So, as far as we know, we're all playing VR.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah,
can all say that because, I mean, no one can say that it isn't true, you know?
yeah.
And that's
So
why I liked your answer, Kyle.
that yeah, that's why it's at a dead end. It's we're just not at
Have
that point.
have you seen the so Tyne, you just reminded me, it's the it was a results of studies between 2007 and 2010, where they had large groups of people um, practicing very specific meditation. And from what I remember, the data suggested that those groups of meditators statistically significantly made a statistically significant difference in violent crime in the cities where they practiced.
Nice.
Oh, that's dope. It was not that one. It was a similar experiment, but it was on cancer patient remission.
Oh yeah.
Similar data.
So when we talk about positive things happening because of like things like that, like I guess
Well, I
so
think you
there's
can do
there,
negative too. I think you
well,
can flip it.
oh yeah, there's many which ways you could twist it, but as far as the good, you know, and a collective will, and you know, it makes things happen because I mean, as a community, I mean, I'm not religious if you couldn't tell, but as far as like you know, churches and Christianity and things go like that, and their magic, anything like it can do good. The community working towards good and like a common goal, like for the most part, the community of it is good. It's some of the other, you know, outdated teachings that are the bad parts, but you know, the placebo, there's this, the prayer, the community, compassion, the um, you know, sense of not being alone and the comfort, you know, before death, you know, and that final answer. Like that's it can be good, you know, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Maybe
Why?
that's their magic. I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what I think it is, and that's why I liked your answer of the science and then it becomes magic, because even if even if the Western idea is that, oh, we don't have this extra element of us, right? All they're saying is that's what our hypothesis is. And by what we're trying to do and what we work towards, we'll eventually prove that right or wrong. And then once that happens, then we'll delve into that of how do we control this now? Oh, wow, science is much more than this because our bodies can do this and because of this and blah, 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 blah.
Hmm. So I guess the way that I think about it is that maybe magic could be a cause of science because let's think about it this way. Like if we go back in a scientific kind of explanation, uh, electricity was the magic. We figured out how to use it,
How
manipulate
to
it, a lot of
harness
things.
it.
Yeah, how to use it, and then it became a science. But then as time went on, it spawned more magic because then what could we do with the electricity? And it was that additional question, the additional magic, the what it was before is there again. It's okay, so then
Oh.
electricity became magnetism. We could create magnetism, which could move objects without touching them. And what could we do with magnetism? You know, and there's so many much more things. And I guess it's the way that science goes about it is that they're not saying that magic isn't real. They're just saying that it's magic until they can understand it. You know,
Mm.
so I guess if you think about it that way, that's kind of maybe magic can be causal of science and vice versa. You know, and that's their
That
relationship
would be
together.
sick because that would make magic evolutionary. And if you look at it
Ooh.
as an understanding value, then it's like, yeah, we understand electricity, right? But we don't really understand electricity. And if it's like through science and through like learning all of this stuff, we understand it to its actual core is when we're actually able to then do the other stuff by, oh, now I can shoot electricity from my fingers because I know there's electricity pulsing through me and I know how to charge my body with the other electricity around me because now I fundamentally have grown in a world where that understanding was built through my genes instead of just I never knew what lightning was. A god
Mhm.
spawned it.
Yeah, I think it's very progressive. So it takes time. I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you
progressive's
think
the new
about
way.
that?
What?
I hadn't heard your voice in a while, so I was gonna say, hey, what do you think
Yeah, I was
about
I
that?
was letting it ride because basically, I just want to make sure we answer like every section we hit, we answer the question that was asked at the beginning, which is basically can they coexist. So I just want to know like where are our final answers on that. And to me, I still think they can coexist. I guess as an overall, like if you're gonna say that, I think maybe again Western civilizations might disagree because we have very skeptical scientists who would not even like the idea of that being said. I think, but um, it depending on how you see it, if we're the way we're talking about it and the way we see it, then yes, they can coexist, and that's my
Do you want each of us to answer that?
yes. It's okay to disagree, by the way.
um, yeah, as far as the word like coexist, I think the word is more relationship, like the relational or causal. One happens and the other happens, um, as opposed to like one happens and the other happens separately of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Um, and I understand the science aspect of how Western science would view this as not okay. Um, and then I would just have to say that they are incorrect, and that's it's okay. It's okay. But only in the idea that like because some things were seen as magic before and now they're seen as science. So as far as them being a relationship, that is there. Like to say that oh you well like then it just never was magic. It's like well it was still seen as that. That's still a perspective that was there and was held and was believed.
Is belief.
Is
I feel like I feel like the fact that we are currently using electrified meat to to think about this topic in the first place is kind of magical in itself. Like we're just these these um
Never thought about
like
myself like that, but
yeah.
yeah, dude.
So
Just
true.
perfectly
um
cooked all the time.
like so in that sense I feel like it is sometimes just a matter of perspective, in the sense that, like, for a kid, right, everything is magical, and then once we think we understand how something works, it stops being magical. So in that sense of, but that's not the sense of magic that we're talking about. I feel like I really like the idea of I really like that idea of that relationship and that evolutionary process. Like, things appear to us as magical, and then we understand them, and then we catalog it as science, and then so in that sense, I feel like I want to go with the relationship perspective, um, and kind of stick to my what I was feeling in the in terms of like magic and science from a human historical perspective are two sides of the same coin. But then in terms of the institution of science in the West, and how it views magic, I don't think those can coexist necessarily.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, it's all about your perspective, or what you're gonna perceive as magic and whatnot. Personally, like you guys were kind of saying, is the biggest magic to me, if there could be any kind of magic, is down on a really, really small, minuscule level. Because there's like there right now, of course, our electric meat is talking through all these different other materials and electricity, and somehow my voice reaches you thousands of whatever miles away. Right? So we can understand why we can do that, but the the whole thing is, like, if you go smaller than that, right? It's like we don't understand why the meat, you know, can communicate with the electricity. Like, it pulses
Mhm.
and does these things, but like, so what gives that information? What generates that information? Because that information is generated by almost an intangible brain. So it's like there's something there. There's some underlying principle. There's this physical law
Hmm.
that we can't touch yet or know about, and that's the true magic right there. Wonder, and through science and that relationship, that's where magic is for me, and that's how magic exists. But I also do think there are fictional magics at the same time, because logically they just don't work. And those would be things like Spider-Man. You know, uh,
Aw.
just in the way that we know of how spiders work right now, and the venom and stuff. Like, there would be no reason for it, and the only reason it could be a magic is that if we go down to the very small part and look at why that fucking poison would make him the way that it would be, as if it were a thing. But that would be a fictional magic until we could figure
Replicate.
it out, type of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And one quick thing before we segue, just because when I was referring to when we're referring to Western cultures throughout the podcast, we're referring to like the colonizing cultures that came after, not a lot of like the indigenous cultures. We talked about like Mesopotamian and they're not even over there, but there are other cultures that are over there that looked at magic a lot more similarly to nature, and a lot more similar to the Asian cultures. But a lot of their cultures were pretty much, thrown out.
Yeah.
So like now Western culture is a lot more just the colonizer culture with a little dashes of those in there.
Yeah.
Thrown out. That's a little.
It's putting
Hey
it
man, I
generously.
wanted to, I wanted, yeah, I wanted to put it generously, but I also wanted to put it that it wasn't like I didn't want to feel like they're pushed to the side. Like no, they were thrown away. Like
Okay. So we've hit like all the things we talked about for the beginning or wanted to talk about. Is there any other point we want to get to before we segue to the more uh, fantasy scenario?
fun stuff.
Anything else?
I don't know, dude. I might have to power up.
Okay. We got. I'm just letting everyone know we're at the 40-minute mark. So, but let's go ahead and hit the fictional and scenario type stuff. Does anyone have something they'd like to bring up as a scenario at all?
As far as what context, the scenario for what?
So like
Uh,
for
For
fictional magic.
magic.
So like one scenario I could think of is like if you could choose a power, which one? What would it be? What would your power? That would be like the question.
Oh, well, I'm gonna go last because I want to hear you guys.
Okay.
oh, we're doing that. Okay, we're doing that question. Let's do it.
Um.
So some kind of magical ability.
Yeah. Just
See
Anything you want, yeah.
Yeah,
that?
anything you want.
Yeah.
The favorite power, why it intrigues you, how you'd
For
use it, kind of
for
thing.
the purpose of this, it is any magical ability because we have said what magic is, and we perceive magic as you say super speed. That's still considered magic in the context we have described.
Sure. Yeah.
So for me, the- I'm always stuck between the idea of super speed or teleportation because I mean teleportation's cool, but let's say I'm in a situation. Teleportation's only fast enough if you know what's happening. Super speed, if you don't know what's happening, you could react.
Mm.
And while I might be able to get to the other end of the world faster, I'd rather take a little longer if it means that whenever I'm in danger, I can protect myself. So I think I always would have to go. I like super. You just can't beat super speed. Is all I'm saying. Like you just can't.
That's what you think.
No. There's so many things I could do with it. Like there's so many good things I could, in my perspective, do with it. Like earn a little more cash.
Yeah.
Run away. Okay. Honestly, it's
What
just.
do you mean by earning cash and running away?
That's why I
What
said.
do with my life.
That's why I said good things
Same
in
things
my.
I could do now.
That's what I'm saying. Good things in my perspective. It's good for me, so it's good.
I was watching a lot of GTA RP. So.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
Dude,
I'm gonna go ahead and pass the baton. Whoever wants to go next. Or
Okay,
you? Oh yeah,
I'll
you
go
wanna go?
next. Yeah, I'll go next. So, well, I always want to say controlling time, but it's just so
No time.
powerful that yeah, can't do it.
I
So,
mean, if you want it, but I'm just saying, as an African American, do you really want to be able to go back in time?
that's not off limits.
yeah, I'd like to go way, way back.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
You can
yeah.
go back beyond 400 years,
Yeah. I want to meet Jesus and be like, oh man, the black of the berry, fella. But um, uh, I'd say not shape shifting, but like
Well,
cell shifting. Huh?
wait a second. I thought you were saying time manipulation.
No, I would
What?
like
That's too
that to be
powerful.
my power, but it's too powerful. At the end of the
Okay.
day,
Morally
I
wrong for
know
you to choose, or what?
it's not that it's morally wrong. I know at the end of the day, I would get bored. I'd get so bored,
I,
and I would
Okay,
lose my
okay.
goddamn
I
mind.
think the worst part about I think the worst part about time manipulation is more of like I'm fine with going back or going forward and changing shit. The only thing is when you change something and you can't change it back and you fucked it up,
Well,
that feels
well,
bad.
so this is interesting. You said time manipulation, not time traveling, right?
Okay, what is this? What is
So,
this wordplay? Okay.
Well, time manipulation, you could still travel through. If you can
It's an
manipulate
umbrella,
time,
right?
to me,
well,
I could do all of those things.
so time manipulation, that means you can manipulate time in any context, right?
Yeah. See,
Should
okay.
super
I
speed
think
be
Well,
this
considered
is
time
why.
manipulation?
Uh,
Huh?
so you could
Super
control
speed.
the age of someone. You could control a person's time. You could control things' time. Like
I think
with
that's why
that.
it's harder for me is because like time. I think time as a subject to us is like, oh, it's just time. But space, we know what space is, and there's so many different orientations of space. Like, oh, whether it's strength, forward, backwards, like we know all the different aspects of it. So when I say controlling time, there's too many things I can control. Like I wouldn't just
Yeah.
say, oh, I control space. I'd be like, no, I would do this thing or this thing. So it's like,
That's not
I don't know how.
entirely bad. It's
It's not
your
that
own
it's
superpower.
no, I
It's
think it's a cool
magic. You can.
superpower. I just think I would get bored because it's like I would
It's like
feel
a god.
yeah, I would feel unstoppable. So
See,
that's also a concept that's always crazy to me. I feel like as like God, I would be bored. There's no way he's not bored out of his mind.
here's the cool
I'd
thing
have
about super speed, man. Like, there is a chance that I might be able to manipulate time as well. See, but like not crazy amounts, just
Mhm.
enough to fuck it.
yeah, and still play with it and be like, oh, I can do it, but at least it's like, oh, I don't know. I'll be walking, it's like, oh, I'm about to die, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Oh, you have to do this. No, I don't. It would just
Or is super speed just you slowing down the world around you and you're still at your same pace?
Oh, we could talk about Quicksilver and about how his brain moves at that speed. So it's actually that everything he processes and his whole movements are at that speed. So the entire world
Speed
just
of
looks
what?
slow to him. I don't know how fast Quicksilver moves.
Oh.
Probably a little bit slower than Flash. I don't know how they fight against each other and who they made faster than who.
I don't know. Flash is fucking fast.
I know he's fast, but I know Quicksilver's also super fast. But Quicksilver's boost is that he's super smart because his brain also moves at that speed.
You know the
But
difference
he
between
goes
Quicksilver and
insane.
Flash?
Huh?
Quicksilver. Wait, are they the same universe? No.
No.
No. No.
Marvel
No.
uses
No. No.
Marvel
Okay.
DC.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
According
yeah,
to Google, in terms of just pure speed and their respective universes, the Flash is technically
league
faster.
faster. Yeah.
Quicksilver's has been seen at a top speed of 4 or 5 times the speed of sound.
This is not very fast.
Yeah. Fuck Quicksilver, dude. He
Well, I mean, it's fast, but it's not like.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not me.
5
You know.
times the speed of
But
sound.
but
It's
like
not,
Flash's brain.
It's not the speed of dark, so.
um, but yeah, so that's why I'd pick not shape shifting, but like cell shifting, if that makes sense. I don't want to
Pretty
actually
cool.
have to always turn into the full animal, but if I can just
Yeah.
manipulate certain
You
parts.
could,
Maybe
you
like
could
this
turn
boy?
into a fucking dildo or something too.
Yep.
That sounds like a Robot Chicken
Yeah.
clip episode. What was the what was that like old cartoon where they power of and they were like you could transform into a thing or
Wonder
something?
Twins.
Yeah.
Form of a bucket of water.
Yeah.
God.
So cell manipulation time. So you want to be a bucket of water?
Hell yeah. Catch that swoosh.
Like you could make yourself inorganic.
Huh.
If you could manipulate your cell to be something inorganic, I guess. So.
If you made yourself inorganic, would you die?
Die.
Yeah, would it just be cell death? Like,
Depends.
Stay in a bucket forever.
Could you
Or would
shift between silicone and carbon life forms? Could you do that? So,
Hmm.
I mean, because if it's cell manipulation, I mean, if you shift from carbon, which what we are, to something silicon, which is theoretically possible, and of course we don't know if there's other ones out there, but I mean,
yeah, if I knew how it functioned as a life form, it would work.
Could you
Right.
make yourself look like a security guard or a bank teller?
Yeah.
At
Huh.
this point, with this set of power, you could turn into anything, any matter. You could turn into a bench or something like that, because then you could switch between any cell or type.
They have to be relatively the same size as Tyen though.
I don't know. It depends.
Would you
on,
risk
like,
like creating more like something out of nothing? Like he couldn't
Well-
turn into a building.
Well, let's say so. If it's cell manipulation, then does that mean he can transform
Multiply?
cell density and all that other stuff? Because if it's full cell manipulation, if he could do cell density or cell volume or cell size and things like that,
Oh my
like,
gosh, just have fat ass
technically-
cells.
yeah,
Well, you could multiply cells too, right?
Yeah.
Wait,
sell
could
them.
you
Cancer.
you could
Yeah,
cure
full
cancer? Yeah.
manipulation.
You're sounding
That is-
pretty useful, buddy. Connor, did you have? Oh, are you done, Tan? Okay.
Oh no, I'm done. Yeah, it's on to one of them too.
Do you have any idea, Connor?
Oh, you're last. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I think, I've been thinking a lot about like magical artifacts. Like the concept of the wand is something that I've been thinking about through like this conversation and when we talked about powers. Because
It's your wand, Harry.
on the one hand, like I always thought it was so cool growing up, the idea of like a magical wand, like having this physical like totem or artifact through which you could channel like this power.
That
Um, then at the same time, it also felt really limiting, right? Like, what if my wand breaks, or what if it like I lose it, or I don't have it? Like, I want to be able to have some kind of inherent power too that I don't need a tool for.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the question would be: Would it does the wand empower you, or does it let you?
is an extension.
Yeah,
Well-
so that's the thing is like I kind of I the way that I came around to it was to think of it as like you have the inherent quote unquote magical power with or without the wand. And I guess I kind of see the wand as like a something to channel and like and concentrate that like a magnifying glass in specific directions.
So Green Lantern, but
Yeah,
as an inherent talent,
It's
right?
exactly.
Because the Green Lantern still needs the ring and stuff. So
it,
you
it,
just it's the without the negatives. It's just your inherent talent, power, like born ability.
I would say it's good that you don't always have to use it because it look really suspicious in a thing. Just saying. Just saying.
But I think um like I had to mention the wand um just because I even got an overpriced one when I went to Universal Studios. And
And let
they
me
had
tell you, your
they had
wand
the
was my sword and shield, dude. Like I was always like that was my shit, dude. When I was growing up, sword and shield, dude. Fucking stick and like a piece of cardboard. Holy
Yeah.
shit, man! I was slaying bushes and shit, dude.
Yeah, and then you heard from the back, "Did you be
Beautiful.
fucking cutting my flower?"
Chopping lemons off the tree, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's beautiful. Um, but in terms of like general magical power, I feel like really like I've always just loved the idea of flight. I know it's very stereotypical in terms of abilities, but um, flight just feels like the dream for me. And now I'm kind of thinking about like from the scientific perspective, like electromagnetic fields, and if that could like the interaction between your electrons um, and the basically like the matter around you, if there could be like some kind of cascading repulsion that leads to some ability to fly. I don't know. I'm probably talking out of my butt.
You're fine. It's bad. We're talking about powers here. Uh, yeah, flying. I don't think. I think flying is cool too because I'm afraid of height. But if I could fly, I would no longer be afraid.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah.
Would be nice though, like you said, if it was also something that could be reflexive, or like if I was like if I was hit, for example, in the head and I was falling towards the ground, like if there could be, or if I was caught off guard and I fell, like if it could be something that kicks in without necessarily my conscious
Emergency
effort.
hover.
Yeah.
Yeah, like emergency hover so I don't smash my face in
Yeah.
the concrete.
See, the only thing, flying is a cool superpower, and flying would be really cool to do. It's just I'm not a scenic person, so when you ask me superpowers, I'm like, oh, I could fly, or I could teleport. I'm gonna teleport.
I'm honestly just trying to think of the best way to abuse my powers, and I can't abuse flight that
You
much.
can't abuse. Ah,
So my power is very OP, and it abuses everything and pretty much incorporates all of your powers into one.
Uh,
All right.
okay, my lord.
All right. Here you go.
So, if we were in the Overlord anime,
Yeah.
I think I would be the Overlord with this power.
Okay.
So, the power is the control and complete mastery manipulation over quarks. So, you guys know what quarks are.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
The quarks are the smallest unit of matter and thing that we can detect. Even smaller than atoms. It's way
They're
smaller.
moving through us right now, right?
It's quarks. It's in everything.
It's like
It's
force in
it's insane. But so what
Star
these
Wars.
the complete manipulation over quarks gives me unlimited speed. I can move at the fastest we've ever witnessed, which is almost instant. Is like it is true teleportation. So when you talk about teleportation, or a lot of people do, translocation is actually what they mean. Um, because teleporting, the only time we have ever seen a true instance of teleporting is with quarks, because quarks just in an instant are somewhere else, and it's almost even. It's yeah,
Flicking.
it's pretty much. But so translocation, or through string theory, and this is how it is proposed to make teleportation, but it would actually be translocation, is that they would create a machine that could break you down into your most raw material. Okay, and over this, with spooky action at at a distance through string theory, on the other end, where you would translocate to, you would then be rebuilt with the new material,
I hate
and
that
you would be
version.
right. So you would be there. That is translocation, right? But so true teleportation, though, is that there is no breaking down. There is no thing like that. It's quarks is so much smaller than that, that it is, when you see it, a quark can actually act faster or more precise or even quicker than an atom can when changing on a different ring between each other, like electrons and all that. Like, they're even quicker than them changing. So, in quarks, you could move fast. Now, also with mastery over quarks, and like I'll explain it through string theory, is that with string theory, like I was saying, is that they would, calculate your raw material, right? Now, in calculating your raw material, they could see why you would have AIDS or HIV or any sort of ailment that could be, impairing you. And when they reconstruct you on the other side,
You wouldn't.
why would you include that? So, with the mastery over quarks, even on a smaller level than that type of theory,
You
is
would just
that
change that while you're there.
you could be immortal if you wanted to over quarks. So you could live forever, and then you could experience time. You could move very fast. You know,
Essentially, you're no longer flesh. You're the
pure energy, pretty much.
electrons. Yeah, you're the energy that are attached to these quirks. That these quirks are essentially, I picture this entire grid, but there's no space between them, and that's what quarks are. And you're
Sounds
attached.
like Dr. Manhattan.
You just kind of move through it as you
it
please.
it would let me like choose if I wanted to manifest, because I could choose to present my quarks in a location or not. It would also allow me to be in multiple places at the same time. So I could almost be infinite because of how quick quarks can move. I could basically be doing shadow clone jutsu fucking everywhere, dude, if I wanted to.
Like,
Have y'all seen Watchmen?
yes.
Yes.
'Cause you're describing Dr. Manhattan like
That's
to the
that's
point.
pretty much that would pretty much be my
Yes,
like my
exactly it.
OP power. Because with this power, at the same time, if I ever got bored or decided it wasn't worth it, or my exploration was over, or like anything like that, like I could even choose to end it, you know. Or like if I also had
Wait, end
energy,
yourself or end like existence?
existence, myself, whatever. because I would have true and complete
Mm.
control and mastery over quarks.
You better never introduce yourself to Batman. He'll make a plan and accidentally give it to a group of maybe those.
I could just erase
Yeah,
Batman.
dude, that's the biggest thing that I hate about DC. They're like Batman's thought of all these plans. I'm like, why don't you just get rid of Batman?
It's a very godlike power or
Yeah.
whatever, but it would allow me to experience anything and anything, like everything that I wanted to, like on my terms, without like detriment of ever getting hurt or dying or like anything, unless I choose it to happen. It's just like complete control. I don't know. Plus, I love quantum physics, science shit, and it just is, you know.
See, that's one of those powers that I think is really, really cool. But I would get so bored.
Well, so the
Wait,
only thing is you're gonna get bored anyway. Is
Yeah,
I have
True.
more time to experience it.
it's true. Yeah.
You know?
would you? But would you even have emotions at that point? Like, with that fundamental understanding of reality, like, how would that shape the way that you viewed the world?
We don't know, and
You
that's why I
okay,
want it.
you would not have emotions because emotions are something that are relational. So if unless there's other creatures that are like him for him to relate to and have an understanding and connection to, he wouldn't. So unless he was like still loved everybody back home, like
Well, so
which
in
he
the
would for like the first 5 minutes, but after that you're like once you experience something like that and you have an understanding like that, it's very hard to ever relate to anybody again.
yeah, so the context of how I would have this be presented as my own power is that I can manipulate it, right? And but I am fundamentally a person, so I always present myself in human like form and stuff. So like that's how it would be for me. But like I mean, I could change. I could do anything I wanted to. But what's to say like I mean, because fundamentally right now there's a way of thinking, right? It's like what the smarter you get, the unhappier you get, right? Because you understand the way shit is.
Mhm.
But there are smart people and value happiness, so they can choose ignorance and things like that, and like they can erase it and things like that. They can generate it in their own way, and I think it all depends, like because this has never happened, nobody knows. It's like it depends. What's the power of that value when you do become something like this, right? It's not to say that because you could experience everything and be also powerful and not be able to relate to anybody. Well, it's like I mean I do present myself in human form, so it's like I would be able to, I guess, somewhat relate to them, but I would know I'd be different and I'd be godlike compared to them.
Mhm.
But I mean, with the way that that would present itself, it's like we don't know, like because the situation has never happened, like that you would be unhappy or happy or not. It's one of those mysteries, but it's we're not OP. I mean, humans are actually very fucking fragile.
Yeah.
I mean, they are durable. I mean, but I mean, we're also fragile as fuck at the same time. Like, if we 1v1 the lion, we're done, son. But I mean, we've never really been like super OP, I guess, like physically or like those things, and we are still limited by our lifespans. So like, I would want there's so much more. Like I would be able to sacrifice my humanity as it is right now, a short humanity, at my chance to experience eternity. But at the
Oh
same
yeah.
time, I could choose it to end it at any time because control over quarks. I could, and it's done. But
Okay. And okay, we've hit the hour mark, but I want to speed run just one more question. You guys are fine with that?
Yeah.
Let's uh let's just what is the dumbest thing you would use your power
dude, I don't
Sexy.
know, dude. I'd fucking like rip y'all back in time to experience like World of Warcraft and shit when it first came out. Like fucking like weird shit like that. I don't know, dude. Like I want to show you all the fucking titties I've seen. Like different. I don't know. There's like a lot of weird. It's all limited to whatever you can think of, dude. But that's some dumb shit I would do. I'd use it for a lot of fun. I don't know, doing weird shit.
I'm trying to think of something really. I guess the dumbest thing I would do it for was like, I prefer online classes, but if I actually have this power, I would have all my classes inside, and I would make sure to steal the answer key every time.
Dude, let me tell you, like, a scenario for me, dude. If I, like, with my power, dude, I would take an online course, right? And if I started failing, although I wouldn't, but, you know, if I started failing, dude, I could just kill the teacher and I would pass, you know? Like,
Wait, what?
you could just eliminate it, you know? Like,
Wait, what do you say?
Complete manipulation.
come on, man.
Damn,
So many
you went.
other
I thought there was like so many other things you could have did. Like,
is that not a human thing, right?
I
there,
thought
right?
I thought
That's
you'd
very
I thought you'd say you'd like reconstruct like the site and itself and like make it like be a kill the teacher. I guess that's
Well,
the line.
so all right. So if you wanted to be super OP, I could just reconstruct his mind to think that I was right. You know. So like I could do something like that because I have control over all those quirks. I could just reconstruct the chemicals in his mind that make him think I'm wrong to being I'm right. Like I could do things like that, but I mean like we're talking stupid shit. So like fuck you, Mr. Garrison, like, should kill him, I don't know. I could probably do some dumb shit. And if I had mastery over quirks, what's to say I couldn't just bring him back to life? Like, I don't know. Generate what's making him living to, I don't know.
Oh, I feel every time you guys say something
Like
stupid.
absorb a book through your hand.
Yeah, let's fucking just put like a fucking flash drive in my fucking face and learn the contents of it.
I guess another dumb thing I would do would be like, now every time you guys say something stupid and I say, dude, I should slap you for saying that, I could actually just go slap you and come back. It'd be even better if you guys didn't know I had the power, so then you're just like, what the fuck just happened?
Dude, I'd probably make it too, like, like every time you said a word, you felt the pain of your nipples being pierced. Like some dumb shit, dude.
I would probably shapeshift into some of y'all's parents.
You know how much nipple pain you just experienced? You know how much like nipple pain you had to go through to say what you just said?
Oh, it feels so good.
Why would you turn into her parents? Okay, you need to finish that. You can't just say turn into her parents.
Okay, I'm picturing this. It's like turning Tyro's mom and just being like, "You clean up that kitchen yet?"
Okay.
What?
The dishes. The dishes, mama. The dishes.
Tyrell, it's time to get off League of Legends. Clean your fucking room.
Okay.
Dumb powers or dumb uses of powers.
That's probably the best way to use them.
Right?
Most fun use of powers?
Besides eliminating my refractory period, maybe having the power to be able to watch a movie and then if I really liked it to be able to watch it again but forget it. Like an experience for the first time.
This would be like the power of nostalgia, dude. You'd be able to experience this shit for the second time. Like, that's what I was saying, dude. I'd bring you guys back for fucking World of Warcraft, dude.
Oh my god, I can use the cell manipulation to make my dick prehensile. Oh.
Dude, you could make your dick fuck people from so far away, or like through things and shit.
Okay, on that note,
Terrifying.
we've gone past our time limit. PTK is gonna go ahead and end the part-time rambles. This has been Stuffums, Tyan, Kyle, and your boy Connor. Thank you guys for listening.
Wall morphing wieners.